Good evening. I don't think anybody's a regular at this event takes for granted the great weather. So let's start off by thanking the great weatherman. We all know the obvious reason why we came here, and that is because we are so excited to wish a mazel tov to Chayla Levitz on the engagement of Chaim to Tova Lupchik, who has been missing a lot of school lately, so he couldn't miss tonight, so he couldn't come to his own l'chaim. But mazel tov, and we wish you tremendous nachas. We know that Chaim will be a fountain of nachas, that new family that he will establish, as well as being a source of nachas to his father, Zichrono Livracha, from his lofty place that we're sure he is in, and assured that he's getting nachas. So, a couple of weeks ago, I called Dr. Avi and Beth and asked them if they would be the honoree this evening for this year's event. So Avi started arguing with me that we don't deserve the honor. You know, what do we do? It's not for us. So I didn't want to argue with him. I didn't want to disagree or be disrespectful. So I said, Avi, I'll be very honest. This is not about honoring you. This is about leveraging your friendships to benefit NCSY, to exploit your friendships. And a great example of that friendship is, it is not easy, and we usually do this on Wednesday evenings, it is not easy to have Rabbi Irons here because he gives a class in this neighborhood for almost 4 decades. So, but because it's Avi, and Avi has been a chavrusa of Rabbi Irons for a decade himself, every Tuesday night is sacred for learning Torah, Avi Adler and Rabbi Irons. And so we rearranged the schedule to start a little early and a little out of order, and I'd like to ask, it's a great kavod and a great honor, a great friend of NCSY, a mentor to NCSY, and a father of an NCSY director. Rabbi Leib Irons is a director of NCSY in Toronto. It is a great honor to have Rabbi Irons.
I'd like to begin with a fascinating story. The background of the story is the War of the Napoleonic War of 1812. Where in the beginning of the summer, on June 25th of 1812, Napoleon, with his Grande Armée of 450,000 troops from his whole empire, decided to teach the Tsar of Russia a lesson, Alexander I, and he proceeded to conquer Russia. On the way, as he's going through Russia, Lithuania at the time had been already taken up by Russia, swallowed up by Russia. And one day, he stopped near Vilna. His whole army stopped near Vilna, not far from the town of Volozhin. And according to the story, he had heard about the great Rav of Volozhin, Napoleon had heard about him and wanted to speak to him. In the middle of the night, he sent scouts to the town of Volozhin. The town was shrouded in darkness. From one home, there was a light. They knocked on the door, Late at night, the Rav, the Rosh Hashiva, Reb Chaim Volozhin, was busy in his study. And they asked him, or rather told him, that Napoleon Bonaparte wants to speak to him. And they escorted him to the camp of the French emperor. And after a long discussion, at least according to the story, it covered many, many topics of life, of philosophy. At the end, Napoleon asked Reb Chaim, "What do you think are my chances of victory over Russia?" And Reb Chaim replied, "Let me tell you a story." This is a story within a story. On a cold, wintry evening, there was a Russian or Polish nobleman, in Yiddish they're poets, who was traveling on the road, and it was icy, it was slippery, and the carriage containing the nobleman went off the road. The nobleman, together with the wagon driver, were able to stand up the carriage. It had fallen on its side, but they were not able to get the horses to be able to get the carriage out of the ditch and onto the main road, as much as they tried. And while they were in the midst of trying, they saw a peasant who came with a wagon, also carried by horses, and also, because of the weather conditions, slipped, and his wagon went down also very close in the ditch. But after righting his wagon, the peasant was easily able to bring his wagon back up onto the road. The nobleman shouted and ran after the peasant. He says, "Tell me, how did you do this? I've been working so hard to get my carriage on the road." So the peasant asked the nobleman, "Where are your horses from?" And with great pride, he says, "That horse over there came from the stables of the King of Prussia. And that one over there came from the stables of the King of France. And that one came from the stables of the Holy Roman Emperor." And the peasant nodded his head, said, "Now I understand what your problem is. You see my horses? It's a mama mit zwei Kinder. It's a mother with two kids. When it's a family, when they pull together. Each one of your horses is a prima donna. This one is pulling in this direction, this one's pulling in the other direction. It's no wonder you can't get your wagon out of the ditch." And Reb Chaim Volozhin continued and said to Napoleon, "It's true, your Grand Armée, you're coming at 450, at least originally had 450,000 troops. But Russia is a small country, but the people are united. I wouldn't write off the Russians." And the end was, on September 7th, there was a terrible battle, the Battle of Borodino. The French were successful with tremendous losses. I don't know if you've read War and Peace or saw the movie. On September 14th, Napoleon reached Moscow. But the Russians burned down Moscow. 80% of the city burned down. And the Russian winter began without provisions. It was very hard to supply. So the French troops, very long supply lines. Eventually, in October, they decided to retreat. And the Russian soldiers kept on through attrition. The French army in disarray barely was able to come back with 40,000 troops out of the 450. And Napoleon was barely able to come back alive. In a certain sense, the strength of the Jewish people like the strength of the proverbial wagon in the story. We've been here for almost 4,000 years. But our strength is that when we pull together. Every Jew has a tremendous history to be proud of. We have a Torah that's guided us for so many thousands of years. We have a land that we daven every single day, 3 times a day, to recognize the tremendous gift that we have. And we have a tremendous future ahead of us. There are many wonderful organizations in this city. But one of the crown jewels is NCSY. It pulls us all together. It gives us all a sense of responsibility. I'm really very proud to be associated with NCSY. Like we go back, and Sizzler even before. Steve Berg was here. For many years, I meet together with the young leadership, the regional board. We generally have a question and answer session. Go for many, many years. We are extremely privileged to have such leadership in our city. This is Sali, Lichtig. Over the years, we've been extremely fortunate. And we've been extremely fortunate to have with us such wonderful people associated with NCSY, such wonderful young men and women. I was in this last several weeks ago, I met with the regional board. It was to my delight. I saw 2 of the children of Dr. Adler, which we've been learning nearly a decade. This is Lisa and Noah. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to see such families that have put so much koiches, so much effort in raising children with a love of Yiddishkeit, of Torah, of a sense of responsibility for the community. And I'm very honored to be part of the presentation here tonight. To honor Dr. Rabbi Adler and his wife Beth, and really the whole Adler family. And it's really honor not to them. It's not just to them. They didn't come. We all of us come from tremendous traditions, and the Adlers are blessed that they have their parents here today. I mean, it comes from them, and their parents before them. We as Jews have a lot to be proud of. And I'm really very proud to be here right now. And if it would be really...
Stephen E. Levitt's Memorial Award, presented with affection and esteem to the Adler family. Dr. Avi and Beth, go in front of the podium if you don't mind. Dr. Avi and Beth Adler, with their wonderful children, Noah, Alyssa, Ethan, Aaron, and Micha, have earned our recognition and esteem in exemplifying the synthesis of Torah and Derech Eretz. The Adlers diligently fulfill the maxim of Shema Vashinantam Levanecha V'Dibarta Bam, as passionate and compassionate Jews. Their family's commitment to Torah is an inspiration to the community and the institutions in which they are involved. Indeed, their greatest accomplishment is the fine children they have raised. We are proud of their affiliation with NCSY. The NCSY family, the Adler family, inspires and influences us all. Central East NCSY Garden Champagne Barbecue, June 8, 2016.
Thank you, Rabbi Irons. Thank you, Tzali, Rabbi Friedman. To those of you who've always attended this brief and wonderful yet meaningful event every year, it's good to see you here again. To those of you who specifically made it your business to be here because our family was in the picture on the invitation, thank you so much for coming. And we hope that it becomes a part of your routine as well. I have a story as well. Many years ago, I had an unusual experience. While an undergraduate at YU, I returned to Eretz Yisrael for a visit. Staying in the adjacent hotel room was a famous and yet controversial rabbi. On Motzei Shabbos, as his entourage packed his bags for his return home, we struck up a conversation. In that time, we discussed many things. However, there's one comment that was particularly extraordinary. On the topic of yeshiva bachrim, their lifestyles, expectations, and experiences, he bemoaned the rote by which they perform their shmirot mitzvot, and at one point he exclaimed, and I quote, "I believe that every yeshiva bachar should trip on acid at least once in their lives in order to get in touch with their neshamot." Do I have your attention now? Now, as a doctor, special expertise and authority might let me get away with saying some things that others may not. But I'm hardly advocating that rabbi's recommendation. However, it does make a fascinating point. The following is a text of a mass email that I received yesterday. I was on a flight sitting next to a middle-aged Israeli businessman. He told me that he was on his way to India to meet his wife, who's already in the ashram, where they're going to be studying Buddhism and meditation. And I said to him, why? And he said, you reach a point in your life when you're just going to eat and see shows, and it's just not enough anymore. You want spirituality in your life. Which led me to say, you're Israeli. Did you ever consider Judaism? So he laughed and responded, what does Judaism have to do with spirituality? Judaism is about doing mitzvot. We do mitzvot. We shake a lulav, we eat matzah, we go through the steps and learn how to do this and how to do that, but where's the meaning in it all? Today's society emphasizes the physical well-being, the body, through eating well and exercise. Our own Jewish community places great value on intellectual well-being, the mind, through academic achievement, and of course through Limud Torah. But what about the spiritual well-being, the soul, the neshama? The following are several of the signs or symptoms that one may be suffering from depression. Persistent, sad, anxious, empty mood, irritability, loss of interest or pleasure in hobbies and activities, decreased energy or fatigue, etc., etc., etc. Unable to perform daily activities such as getting out of bed, getting dressed, performing well at school, social withdrawal. To me, these sound like the symptoms of your average teenager. Typically, they might be holed up in their room, surfing the web, watching Vines or YouTube, having digital conversation with their friends through text, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. But with musical lyrics and reality TV and the depressing news propagated in the internet the way it is, it's really not much of a surprise. This was a recent email from the AMA. Psilocybin may be a safe, effective treatment for treatment-resistant severe depression. Psilocybin is the psychedelic mushroom that may be safe and effective for severe depression. This was in The Lancet. This is a reputable psychiatric journal. It works the same way as the antidepressants, but it works very quickly. However, the addition of another drug or legalizing an ancient substance for a quick fix is most certainly not the solution to improving the neshama of our children. Although the rabbi with whom I had the chance to encounter that some 30 years ago may have had some insight way before this discovery, even he didn't employ these tactics to reach out to other neshamot. He actually did it through positivity, love, music, and dance. In my professional opinion, the best prescription is NCSY. It's a much longer acting, and in fact, it is a gateway drug to other bigger and better things like national pride, going to Israel, and genealogical well-being, as in the participants sometimes finding their shidduchim and marrying them, or statistically more likely to find a Jewish soulmate. NCSY accomplishes its goals through song, dance, high fives, fist bumps, hugs, hand-holding, heartfelt tears, and a generous helping of positivity and joy. The results of these ingredients is a sophistication in emunah, faith, and hashkafa, worldview and guiding philosophy, in Achdus, in unity, in Avas Yisrael, the love of one's fellow Jew regardless of affiliation. NCSYers become inspired and inspire others. Their outstanding advisors model communal responsibility and help the participants develop personal growth and confidence building through simple tasks like public speaking or even more complex forms of leadership. Sometimes in a short time, these kids make friends for life based on shared values and moving experiences. When Beth was younger, she was involved with NCSY Central East. However, I was not until I became an advisor in New England region NCSY while in college. And then our involvement ended. It's unfortunate that there's no NCSA, National Council for Synagogue Adults, from which we adults can get our occasional spiritual boost. Nevertheless, after several years in Michigan, Sally must have heard about the Adlers and their 5 children. Before our children were of age, in a nearly prophetic move, he asked me to join the committee involved with this yearly event. Given the extent of Chayala's generosity, I figured that I could do no less for the one yearly fundraising event that's done in Detroit, for the Detroit chapter. However, when it came time for my children's involvement, Beth and I had some concerns. But Sali not only listened, he went out of his way to address and allay our fears. Then a funny thing happened over the course of the next 7 years. Alyssa and Noah progressed from junior NCSYers to high school NCSYers to junior NCSY leaders to chapter board members to attending their summer program, Alyssa with Yad B'Yad and Noah at NCSY Kollel in Israel, to chapter leadership, to Alyssa and Noah being involved in reforming Yachad again in Detroit, to being Detroit co-chapter presidents and then selected to the Central East Regional Board, while Noah was also the regional president. Of course, over this period of time, Ethan, Aaron, and Micah, they've also had an opportunity to get involved, and they, as we, have had the good fortune of establishing a meaningful relationship with Rabbi David Lichtig and his family. In the past, Beth and I have declined several opportunities for honors. In this case, we accepted despite our reluctance because in this capacity, we have a forum to go on record to give thanks. Thanks to Rabbi Lichtig, along with the many wonderful advisors who've had such a positive influence on our children. But in particular, we also get to publicly thank Rabbi Tzali Friedman for every little thing, especially in his efforts to make all of this happen for us and so many other families. Also, we can publicly express our love and pride in Alyssa and Noah and to NCSY for creating an environment where they have the opportunity to be selfless in their efforts to positively influence others. Lastly, Beth does deserve this recognition for all the weeknights and weekends that she endured without her children because of their commitment to NCSY. This is not to mention all the time she spent packing and unpacking them. In addition, she alone deserves this recognition for always making certain that our many guests had nosh, clean sheets and towels in order to feel at most at home while attending the NCSY Shabbatonim locally. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming, and I'm sure enjoying this evening. On behalf of Beth, myself, Alyssa, Noah, Ethan, Aaron, and Micah, and the Detroit chapter of NCSY, we hope that you not only continue your support of NCSY, but that all of your friends and neighbors will also, so that it can continue to be the elixir for our children's souls.
Next week, Tuesday night, the Adlers are going to be giving parenting clinics to tell us how to raise such wonderful, wonderful children. Thank you very, very, very much. Just 10 days ago, we had our regional convention, and the highlight of regional convention is the banquet, and the highlight of the banquet is at the very end, there's 200 kids, 250 kids sitting around the room seeing who's going to win chapter of the year. So what we like to say is chapter of the year is not just chapter of the year, because NCSY is the greatest youth organization in the world, and the Central East region is the greatest region of the NCSY regions. So winning chapter of the year means you are chapter of the universe. So last year it was Detroit that was chapter of the universe. And the question was, who is going to be this year? And I have to tell you, it was not Detroit. Okay, but I want to clarify. That does not mean that they are not the greatest chapter in the world. Okay? Because the way we give chapter of the year is to see where you started and how much you progressed. And Pittsburgh is a small little town, and they had great disadvantages, and their whole chapter was their senior class, and they started off the year very, very handicapped, and they had an amazing year. So relatively speaking, they were chapter of the year, but the chapter of the universe remains Detroit. Okay. NCSY has a very, very sophisticated data system where we keep track of everything that's going on. And I just want to share with you some of the statistics of what happened in Detroit NCSY. So there were, besides the 8 regional events, there were 132 chapter events that involved 2,808 participants. There was a total of 324 individuals that are active in NCSY 3 or more times a year. So the 324 kids that are being reached. Amazing stuff, just amazing stuff from wall to wall. You're going to hear some of it. I don't want to keep things long, but I just want to tell you, a couple months ago, Rabbi, every winter I go to Israel and I spend some time with the alumni. And each year I take one of the chapter directors from one of the cities, and this year was Rabbi Lichtig's turn. And he had no less than 22 students of his that he has a close relationship with, that he was visiting in Israel. We visited 15 different schools, and there were 22 students of his, 11 of them who would not have been there without Rabbi Lichtig. So a big, and I should really say, without Chavi Lichtig. Their open home, the amount of brownies and cookies and cholent and what happens in their home is absolutely amazing, and we're very, very grateful to them. One of the great things, and the kids' culture, the chapter culture, is a culture of kiruv, of outreach, and it's very, very inclusive. And this year, that was throughout the chapter, everything they did, and there are 2 kids here this evening who are receiving the Meyer and Bessie Eisenberg Scholarship. We know that Meyer and Bessie did a great, great job because each of their children, Sandy and Barry and Dennis, are all people who carry communal responsibility, and they wisely have chosen to commemorate the memory of their parents by giving a scholarship. And this year's recipient are 2 kids, one from Bloomfield High, one from Berkeley High, both of them who did not know what NCSY was 6 months ago. They didn't know what it was. And in the last 6 months, the chapter has been incredibly warm and gracious, welcoming them and involving them and including them in every way, and that's what they do in Detroit. That's what they do in the D. And this year, they went on Yarchei Kala, and they went on all the regional events, and they came to JSP, to the weekly learning session. And in 3 weeks from tonight, they are heading to Israel on TJJ. Just so you know, NCSY is the #1 provider of teen programs to Israel. And we have 10 different programs involving 1,200 students. And TJJ is 12 buses of kids from public school. It's sort of like Birthright, except it's a full month. And not only that, after the full month, we have 2 years to follow up with them. So helping them go on TJJ is the Eisenberg Scholarship. I'd like to call upon Mali and Joseph Yusufa and Mali Yarbo to accept this scholarship. Like I said, there's a culture of outreach in the chapter, and one of the great initiatives of this year was Windsor. And several times, every couple weeks, a whole group of Detroiters would go to Windsor and run activities there, and every couple weeks they'd invite the Windsor kids to participate here in Detroit, and there's just an amazing level of outreach and great, great stuff. And representing the faces of NCSY is a young man from Windsor. He'll tell you about himself, so I don't need to tell you anything about him. I'd like to call upon Aiden Horowitz.
4 years ago, I was preparing for my first day in high school, and I was super nervous. I only knew 1 or 2 other kids going to this public school with me. And I knew that tomorrow would be a pretty important day. It would be important for me to meet the other kids in the school, to meet some new friends, and to understand where I would be spending the majority of my days for the next 4 years. But I wasn't concerned about my jeans or my top or my hair, how it looked on the first day. I was concerned about, my concerns were a little different, I think, than most of the kids going to the school. Instead, I was carefully going through my expansive kippah collection, looking for just the right one. I was looking for the most inconspicuous kippah. Looking for the kippah, a yarmulke that it would look as if I wasn't wearing anything on my head at all. Now, I went to Hillel Day School for elementary, and wearing a kippah was what everyone did. But for high school, there were no Jewish options. And you see, I live in Windsor, Canada, a city with a very small and a dying Jewish community. And I understood that the commute to Detroit for high school wouldn't be an option for me. So I would be going to a public high school. The school that I would attend would have roughly 900 students and very few Jews. Actually, to be exact, I would be the only other Jewish boy at my school. The other was my brother. And he came up to me the day before the first day, and he said that I have to be comfortable with who I am. He said, going into the first day, I have to be proud of who I am, and I have to be proud that I'm Jewish. I have to embrace it and be brave. So on that first day of school, I walked in with my brother on my side, and I waited for those looks. I waited for the stares and the whispers that I expected. But to my surprise, wearing the kippah on my head on that first day, it made more people in the school like me. It made more people respect me and like me for embracing my culture, my traditions, and they liked me because I wore the kippah. I realized that the kippah that I'd be wearing on my head was a huge responsibility. It meant that I would be representing the Jewish people. To all of these kids in my school, including my friends, I was what they thought of when they saw Jews in the newspaper, when they saw Israel in the news and articles about Jews. I was what they imagined Jews to act like and look like. It was a huge responsibility. Now, fast forward 4 years to just a few weeks ago. I was at Canada's Wonderland. Now, if you don't know, Canada's Wonderland is an amusement park right outside of Toronto. We spent the entire day there. It was a school trip. And on the way to the park, a friend of mine jokingly asked me, he said, Aiden, how many thumbtacks, how many bobby pins are you going to have to put in your kippah to make sure it stays on for the roller coasters? Now, I've been to many roller coasters in the past, and I had it down to a science. Before each ride, I would take off my kippah, either put it in my pocket or sit on it, and then after the ride, put it back on. Easy as that. So, when my school got to the amusement park, obviously the first thing we did was we ran to the largest coaster, and actually a buddy of mine and myself, we sat in the front seat, super excited. The first thing I did, I took off my kippah, I put it under me, I sat on it. It was an awesome ride, but there was one problem. About 25 seconds later, when the ride ended, I got out of my seat, went to grab my kippah, and I realized that it was gone. I guess it must have fallen off on one of the coaster's loops. So I tried to find it, and I had no luck. All of a sudden, I realized that for the rest of the day, I would be kippahless. So over the next couple of hours, I walked around Canada's Wonderland, and I had this feeling, this strange feeling like I was naked. It felt as if I lost my identity. I'm telling you, I did not feel like I was myself. I didn't feel like me. was very strange, as if no one was watching me. I had no responsibilities. I could do anything and have no consequences. It really got me thinking that this piece of cloth that I put on my head every day, this kippah that I wear, it makes me who I am. Without it, I realize that I am a completely different person. Without the kippah, I will act differently, speak differently. It makes me the person that I am. I guess it really does its job. It reminds me that God is above me. It reminds me that God's around me. And it reminds me of who I am and who I'm representing. Every single second that the kippah is on my head, I feel proud and responsible to be a representative of the Jewish people. Now, back at home, many of my friends, the school that I go to, the community I live in, many of my friends, they have completely different cultures. They have a completely different culture than I do. My friends and their families have different principles and values than I do, and for sure a different background. Now I get along with all of them, and I love them. Some of my best friends, Qasim, Naman, Abbas, some of my best friends in the world. However, it's very difficult to go there every day and be the lone Jew. And I totally understand now how easy it is for anyone to assimilate, to slowly lose your Jewish identity, to slowly lose your connection with God, and slowly lose your connection with the Jewish people. It's almost impossible not to. So 2 weeks ago, the theme of the regional convention was courage. And I spoke and shared with the fellow NCSYers and the NCSY region the same story. And many of them came up to me afterwards and they told me that what I said inspired them, but they were all wondering how I keep from assimilating. What keeps me different? Now, truthfully, I can't give all the credit to the kippah. I have to give some credit to my loving parents and to NCSY. Several years ago, my oldest brother, Daniel, aka Pinchas, he was a senior in high school, and he decided to go on a Shabbaton in Detroit. He heard about it from a friend of a friend. My parents encouraged him to go, and in the end, just like my decision to wear the kippah, his choice to attend this Shabbaton did not only change his life, but it changed the life of every member of my family. Daniel is now studying in Israel, along with my other brother, Noah, who is also very active in NCSY. Last summer, I had the good fortune to learn Torah in Israel on NCSY's summer program, NCSY Kola. It was an amazing experience, a very inspiring experience. It inspired me so much that I've decided next year to attend a yeshiva in Israel. I will be at Esha Torah in Jerusalem. And I can tell you, if not for NCSY, 100%, without a doubt, I would not be going to Israel next year. NCSY has had a huge impact on me and on my entire family. It's helped transform me from someone afraid to wear a kippah to someone who is defined by it. And now that first step that Daniel, my brother, took, did not simply impact my family alone. This year in Windsor, we have gathered up the Jews and we've basically created a new NCSY chapter. Now, once every week or so, we have an event in Windsor, usually getting around 10 of us, 10 other Jewish high school kids, and Rabbi Lichtig and a few other Jewish friends of mine from Detroit come in and we all have a great time. Outreach to Windsor has become a major priority for the Detroit chapter. And in turn, NCSY is now a major priority for the lives of my friends, my Jewish friends, high schoolers in Windsor, and they are now proud to be representatives of the Jewish people as well. So, standing up here, I really have to take the opportunity to thank my parents. They've always been there for me. And I have to thank them so much. Also, NCSY, I have to thank, and my Kippah. These three things have helped me become the person that I am today. They have helped me be different and be proud that I am different. The only way to be successful for each and every one of us, the only way to be successful is for everyone to be courageous in their own way. Dare to be different. That is what I learned from my experience. Dare to be different. Be courageous in your own lives and be proud. Wake up every morning and thank God for creating you exactly the way that you are. You have to have courage. Have courage to be different, and have courage to be the difference in the world. Thank you.
It's because of kids like Aiden that Chayla has been doing this for 23 years. And you have all been coming for 23 years. And speaking about 23 years, I want to wish a happy anniversary to the Adlers on their 23rd wedding anniversary. This evening, first of all, thank each and every one of you. We really, really appreciate your warm and your generous support. We look forward to this every year. But tonight is a little bit different because each year Noam Carmen was here. And Noam was the father of Ari, Esti, Kayla, and Talia. And it won't be the same. And I'd like to call upon Stacy, who would like to make a presentation, a scholarship in his memory.
I first want to tell you that this scholarship this year was made possible by my sister-in-law, Viva, and all of her children. And God willing, my children and I will pay it forward. I'm reading from the paper because if I don't, I'm going to cry. Hi, this is really not my thing, nor was it Noam's. I can only recall 3 times when he got up to speak in front of a crowd. Ari's bar mitzvah, and Shever Brachot for Ari and Eli's wedding, and Kayla and Shlomo's wedding. I'm going to begin by telling you how far back I go with the Fabers and our journey that brought us here today. My family moved to Southfield from Detroit when I was 10 years old. I didn't know anyone, but instantly became friends with a girl named Ellen Faber. We spent most afternoons at one of our homes. I can vividly recall being at Ellen's, the 2 of us upstairs singing into hairbrushes while Mark and Karen hung out on the couch in the Faber's den. Our lives took different paths and our friendship slowly ended. I was reintroduced to the Faber family when Noam and I chose to move with our children to the Young Israel of Southfield neighborhood. I used to babysit for Gabe and later Nati, all the while our families became like one. Noam would take Gabe and Nati to sporting events as if they were his own. They, along with the Nadell boys, would come to watch the Super Bowl, even after our other children had left the nest. Noam and I recently laughed at the memory of sitting around the Faber sukkah, conversation becoming inappropriate for a young boy's ears, and Nati quickly reminding us, 9-year-old here. Nati asked Noam to take him driving so he could log enough hours to get his license. Of course he said yes. He was Noam Cartman. I truly can't recall a time when Noam didn't come when needed. I finally recall a time when one of the Faber boys, who shall remain nameless, Josh, needed Noam's help. He had recently moved into a new home with Jess and were having a young couple over. The problem was, no one would go inside because there was a bee there. He called Noam because, and I quote, he is the manliest man I know. When we think of Noam, we think of a strong, confident athlete, a man of strength, wisdom, and a heart of gold. He could be found on the baseball field or sitting in shul after Hashkama learning, always with a smile on his face. When we were sitting Shiva, there was only one morning that we needed a bal koreh. Of course, we didn't stop to think we needed someone to lane that morning. Noam would do it. Sunday night, after all our visitors had left, I got a text from Nati. Sorry for bothering you, but do you need someone to lane tomorrow morning? I looked at Ari, and we both knew instantly Nati was our guy. I replied, yes, it's all yours, to which Nati replied, awesome, thanks. It seemed only fitting that the person to lane at Noam Shiva would be Nati. There's a joke that Noam's dad used to tell. There was a priest and a rabbi. The priest says, I am a father to many. The rabbi says, I am a father to many. Noam was a father to many. He considered each and every young Israel of Southfield child to be one of his own, greeting each one with a, hey kid. There is, however, one young man who connected with Noam like no other. That young man is Nati Faber. It gives me great joy to present the first Noam Ezra Carmen Memorial Scholarship to Nati Faber.
Thank you very, very much. There's more food at the buffet. We're going to start benching in a moment.